October 11, 1957, Kilby Prison, Alabama. Just past midnight, a heavy silence settled over the execution chamber as a 50-year-old woman with soft auburn hair took slow, deliberate steps toward the electric chair. In her left hand, she held a worn Bible, its pages trembling slightly as she walked. Her name was Rhonda Bell Martin, and in a matter of minutes, she would leave behind a legacy that no one in Alabama would ever forget. Not because she was a criminal mastermind, not because she was a notorious outlaw, but because she was something far more unsettling, something far closer to home. Rhonda wasn't a hardened killer people whispered about in dark alleyways. She was a waitress who served breakfast with a smile, a woman neighbors greeted without hesitation, someone no one ever feared. But beneath that gentle exterior lived a truth so disturbing that even seasoned investigators struggled to comprehend it. This wasn't the story of a single tragic death. This was a pattern of poison, a slow and quiet method of murder used against the people who trusted her most. Her own family. By the time Rhonda sat in that wooden chair, Alabama had unknowingly witnessed one of the most chilling series of killings in its history. Rhonda confessed to murdering 6 people: her mother, 2 of her husbands, and 3 of her young daughters. Each one suffered slowly, poisoned by meals prepared by her own hands. There was one more victim, a man who survived, but whose life would never be the same. What transforms a mother into a murderer? How does a wife justify turning meals into death sentences? And why did no one suspect her for so many years? Before we begin this unsettling journey, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. This is Court of Secrets. Stay with us. What happens when the person you trust most becomes the danger you never saw coming? Rhonda Bell Martin was born on November 4th, 1906, in a small town in Alabama, at a time when life for women was often defined by endurance and obligation. The details of her childhood are scarce, almost deliberately obscured by the passage of time. What we do know is that her life appeared ordinary, even modest, shaped by the routines and struggles of early 20th century Southern life. From the outside, Rhonda seemed to follow the path laid before her, blending into the everyday world of family, work, and community. But beneath this unremarkable exterior, a darkness was slowly taking shape, a shadow that would eventually touch the lives of those closest to her in ways no one could imagine as a young adult. Rhonda began working as a waitress in Montgomery, Alabama. She was the familiar face behind the counter, the woman serving coffee and pie with a practiced smile. To customers, she seemed approachable and kind, the kind of person you might not give a second thought to. Yet, in the privacy of her own life, Rhonda's thoughts and intentions were far from ordinary. She lived a life that was outwardly routine but inwardly calculated, a life that would soon reveal a pattern of manipulation and death that stretched across more than a decade. Rhonda's personal life was complicated. She married 5 times, a number unusual for the era, and each marriage came with its own story, its own set of questions. On paper, Rhonda was a typical mother and wife trying to navigate financial instability, family responsibilities, and the pressures of Southern society. She had 7 children and moved frequently, leaving little permanence in her life, as though the chaos around her mirrored something internal, unseen, yet insistent. Financially, her household was perpetually strained. Jobs as a waitress never brought wealth, and life was measured in small increments, in bills paid late, in insurance policies purchased quietly, almost as a precaution, almost as a calculated safety net. These insurance policies, seemingly mundane at the time, would later become pivotal in the investigation into her crimes. They were modest, barely enough to cover funeral expenses, but each one represented a thread in a growing web of tragedy. What appeared as a responsible step by a cautious mother would later reveal a darker, almost sinister intention. From 1937 onward, Rhonda's family became increasingly entwined with death. The first to fall was her youngest daughter, 3-year-old Emaine Garrett. The child grew sick and faded quickly, a loss that neighbors mourned with sympathy cards and flowers. Rhonda appeared devastated, a grieving mother collecting condolences, playing the role to perfection. But within 2 years, another death struck. Her second husband, George Garrett, began suffering mysterious illnesses, and like Emaine, he succumbed slowly. Once again, Rhonda performed the rituals of grief, attending the funeral, accepting the pity and attention that came with tragedy. In 1940, 6-year-old Anna Carolyn Garrett, another daughter, fell ill in the same manner as her sister. The doctors were baffled, unable to diagnose the symptoms, and the child died quietly. Rhonda's public sorrow continued, carefully measured, performed with precision. By 1943, her eldest daughter, 11-year-old Ellen Elizabeth Garrett, also became ill, following the pattern that had now defined her family's fate. 3 daughters, all lost before reaching adolescence. A string of tragedies that cast Rhonda as the unfortunate mother, the grieving widow, the sympathetic figure in the community's eyes. The deaths extended beyond her children. In 1944, Rhonda's own mother, Mary Frances Gibbon, became sick and passed away. Another funeral, another layer of social attention that Rhonda collected and preserved, like pieces in a puzzle that only she could see coming together. Then, in 1951, her 4th husband, Claude Carroll Martin, aged 51, became ill. He suffered silently until he died on April 27th. Once again, Rhonda mourned, yet quietly. She collected insurance money from 3 small policies totaling $2,750, a modest sum that barely covered funeral costs, yet it became a defining element in what would later emerge as her crimes. 8 months after Claude's death, Rhonda did something shocking and controversial. She married his son, Ronald Martin. Ronald was 21 years younger than her, formerly her stepson, and now her husband. The union, controversial and unusual, would nearly cost him his life. This marriage also marked a turning point, as Rhonda's pattern of poisoning continued in a new, alarming way. Rhonda's method was always deliberate. Arsenic-based rat poison, widely available and easy to conceal, became her weapon of choice. Administered slowly, in food and beverages, it created a prolonged illness that baffled doctors and masked the true cause of death. She orchestrated these illnesses with care, taking pride in the attention it garnered. Sympathy cards, flowers, concern from neighbors and acquaintances. These were the rewards that seemed to fuel her compulsions. She even arranged for her victims to be buried together in a private plot, a chilling display of control and forethought, as though creating a personal cemetery in which to commemorate her actions. The motives remained murky. While insurance money was involved, the amounts were insignificant, insufficient to sustain her lifestyle. Attention and sympathy seemed to play a role, as did perhaps an innate desire for control over life and death. Rhonda herself later confessed that she could not explain her actions, that there was no rational reason, only an internal compulsion she could neither name nor understand. In 1955, Ronald Martin began to exhibit the same symptoms that had claimed the lives of his father and Rhonda's other victims. Yet, unlike the others, he survived, though he was paralyzed from the waist down. His illness prompted medical investigation, ultimately revealing arsenic poisoning. The discovery shattered any illusion of coincidence, drawing authorities into Rhonda's history, where a series of 6 deaths among close family members could no longer be ignored. Investigators traced the pattern: 3 daughters, 2 husbands, and her mother, all poisoned over 14 years. On March 14, 1956, Rhonda Bell Martin was arrested in Mobile, Alabama, after careful investigation and questioning. Initially, she denied all wrongdoing, but over 3 days of intense interrogation, the evidence became undeniable. She confessed to the murders of 6 individuals, including her mother, 2 husbands, and 3 daughters, as well as the attempted murder of Ronald. The public reaction was instantaneous and horrified. Newspapers across the nation called her a modern poisoner, a domestic monster who had hidden malevolence beneath a friendly smile. Those who had known her recalled her as ordinary, as kind, as attentive. Nothing could have prepared them for the revelation of the deaths she orchestrated. Her confession and the ensuing trial exposed not only the methodical nature of her crimes but also a darker question. What compels a mother to systematically end the lives of her own children and spouses? Why did Rhonda kill so quietly, so deliberately, and for so long? And perhaps most haunting, why did she claim not to understand her own impulses? After Rhonda Bell Martin's confession, the wheels of justice turned swiftly. She was charged with the murder of her 4th husband, Claude Carroll Martin, the case the prosecutors believed would be easiest to prove. Evidence was overwhelming. Autopsies confirmed arsenic poisoning, and the pattern of deaths among her family members left little room for doubt. The courtroom in Montgomery, Alabama, filled quickly as curiosity gripped the public. Reporters, citizens, and those fascinated by the macabre came to witness the woman who had poisoned her own family. Rhonda entered the courtroom wearing glasses and a plain dress, her auburn hair neatly tied back. She looked more like a grandmother than a criminal mastermind. To the casual observer, she could have been anyone, blending into the crowd as a middle-aged woman, unremarkable yet composed. But beneath that ordinary exterior lay the evidence of years of careful planning, manipulation, and murder. She was 49 years old, weighed about 170 pounds, and carried herself with a calm that unnerved many. Her expression, composed yet hollow, hinted at the deep, inexplicable darkness that had driven her actions. Her defense team faced an impossible challenge. The confession alone was damning. Witnesses would testify, medical records would show arsenic poisoning, and the deaths formed a clear, unbroken pattern. In response, her attorneys pursued an insanity defense. They argued that no sane person could systematically poison their own children, spouses, and mother without losing touch with reality. The courtroom became a stage for psychological debate, with the defense painting Rhonda as a woman whose mind had fractured, leaving her unable to discern right from wrong. The prosecution, led by Circuit Solicitor William F. Thetford, countered with precision. He portrayed Rhonda as cold, calculating, and deliberate. Every step she took had a purpose. Feeding arsenic to Claude Martin was not an accident or lapse of reason. It was carefully planned to allow her to collect insurance money and ultimately marry his son. Evidence showed that she had received $2,750 from 3 policies after Claude's death. A modest sum, but enough to indicate premeditation. The prosecution emphasized her meticulous methods, from the slow poisoning to the staged mourning rituals, to show that her actions were neither impulsive nor insane. They were calculated testimonies painted a chilling portrait. Neighbors remembered Rhonda attending funerals with perfect composure, accepting sympathy cards, and playing the grieving widow convincingly. Doctors recounted the symptoms of arsenic poisoning in her victims: vomiting, abdominal pain, and eventual collapse. Each death followed a similar trajectory, suggesting not just opportunity but intent. Throughout the trial, Rhonda remained mostly silent, offering no clear motive. She admitted to the killings but could not explain why. Her denial regarding 2 of her other children's deaths added to the mystery, leaving the public and jurors alike grappling with the incomprehensible. The trial lasted several weeks, with the jury meticulously reviewing evidence, hearing witnesses, and witnessing Rhonda's stoic presence in the courtroom. On June 4, 1956, after deliberating for 3 hours and 10 minutes, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty of murder. The sentence was death by electrocution, a punishment that matched the severity and premeditated nature of her crimes. Rhonda collapsed in her seat, tears streaming down her face as the reality of her fate finally sank in. Her life, once cloaked in ordinary routines and the illusion of normalcy, was now reduced to the stark inevitability of death. Her case, however, did not end with the sentence. Under Alabama law, death penalty convictions were automatically reviewed by the state Supreme Court. Appeals and requests for clemency followed. Her defense team argued passionately, claiming that her mental state had never been adequately evaluated and that executing a potentially insane woman would be a miscarriage of justice. Yet, every appeal and request was denied. Governor James E. Folsom refused clemency, and the courts upheld the death sentence. Rhonda Bell Martin would die for her crimes. Prison life on death row was marked by constant movement and uncertainty. Officials feared that revealing her execution date too far in advance could trigger a fatal cardiac event, as she had a known heart condition. She was transferred multiple times: Jefferson County Jail, Kilby Prison, Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women, each move adding layers of psychological torment. Her final hours were shrouded in secrecy, leaving her isolated with her thoughts, her crimes, and the looming presence of mortality. During her time in prison, Rhonda prepared herself meticulously. She made a black and white dress, which she wore to her clemency hearing, signaling a desire to appear composed and dignified despite the horrors she had committed. She kept her wedding ring on, a silent connection to the marriages that had ended in death. Her final meal was simple: hamburger, mashed potatoes, cinnamon rolls, and coffee, the comfort food she had once served to others as a waitress. There was a strange symmetry in her choices, a reflection of her ordinary facade intertwined with extraordinary cruelty. On October 11, 1957, just after midnight, Rhonda Bell Martin was led into the electric chair at Kilby Prison. In her left hand, she clutched a small New Testament Bible. Her black and white dress was neat, her auburn hair in place, and her wedding ring glinted quietly under the dim lights. The chaplain recited the 23rd Psalm, a soft voice echoing through the chamber. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Rhonda remained calm, her expression unreadable, tears streaking silently down her face. She offered no final words, no apology, no explanation. Silence was her final act. The execution itself was harrowing. The first attempt failed due to a technical error. The electrodes had not been connected properly. She waited strapped in the chair, conscious of every second, until the problem was corrected. At 12:16 a.m., 6 minutes after the first shock, the state delivered justice. Rhonda Bell Martin was pronounced dead. Her body was removed shortly after, ending the life of the woman who had poisoned 6 people over 14 years and left a trail of grief, mystery, and horror. Even in death, Rhonda left behind questions. A note found in her Bible revealed her wish to donate her body to science, to have her brain studied in the hope that someone might understand what drove her to such acts. She wrote, "I can't understand it, for I had no reason whatsoever. There's definitely something wrong. Can't someone find it and save someone else the agony I have been through?" Her plea for understanding went unanswered. Instead, her body was returned to a funeral home in Montgomery, and she was buried, her secrets intact. Rhonda Bell Martin's case remains one of Alabama's most notorious and disturbing crimes. She became the third and final woman executed by electrocution in the state before the Furman versus Georgia ruling temporarily halted executions across America. She was also the last woman executed in Alabama for 45 years, until 2002, when Linda Lyon Block was put to death for the murder of a police officer. The story raises profound questions. What drives a mother to poison her children? What compels someone to kill spouses and then marry a stepson only to attempt the same again? Was Rhonda mentally ill, or was she simply evil? Could science have explained her actions if her body and brain had been studied? Or do some forms of darkness exist beyond human comprehension? 6 lives were taken by her hand. 1 man survived but was left permanently paralyzed. Families were shattered, grief endured, and a nation was left to grapple with a chilling truth. Ordinary people can hide unimaginable darkness behind the most familiar faces. Rhonda Bell Martin's crimes remind us that evil can reside anywhere, even in those who appear to be nurturing mothers, devoted wives, or friendly neighbors. Her legacy is one of sorrow, terror, and unanswerable questions. A haunting chapter in the history of crime in America. The story of Rhonda Bell Martin is one that lingers long after you hear it. A seemingly ordinary waitress from Montgomery who poisoned 6 members of her own family over 14 years. 3 innocent children who never had a chance to grow up. 2 husbands who trusted the woman they married. A mother who should have been safe in her daughter's care. And the most chilling part, Rhonda herself admitted she didn't understand why she did it. Was she a calculating killer driven by attention and the lure of small insurance payouts? Or was she a deeply disturbed woman, struggling with mental illness that went unnoticed and untreated? The truth may have died with her in that electric chair on October 11, 1957. What do you think? Could modern science have unraveled the darkness inside her mind? Should her mental state have spared her from execution? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear how you interpret this haunting case. If this story unsettled you, hit the like button and share it with others fascinated by true crime and the complexities of human nature. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the darkest corners of human behavior and the justice system that attempts to confront it. Remember, this is Court of Secrets, Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.